Eastern Michigan University. Beginning as the Michigan State Normal School in 1853, it has since quadrupled in size and became a major university in Michigan. But it's home to more than just students and professors. Behind closed doors and buried in time, arcane secrets lie in wait. Of all the ghost stories surrounding Eastern, the ghost of Starkweather Hall is perhaps the most popular. Starkweather Hall is the oldest surviving building at Eastern Michigan University. Built in 1896, it has faced fires, reconstruction, and repurposing, and yet is still standing and still in use today. It's no surprise that it's also garnered some supernatural history as well. The story goes that Mary Ann Starkweather built and dedicated Starkweather Hall with the strict condition that it only be used for the Student Christian Association. And that's how it stayed until the SCA ended in the 1920s. The Office of Religious Affairs held onto the building until 1976 when they were dissolved. Now it houses the graduate office. A pretty big change since it began. The thought is that Mary Ann Starkweather now haunts the building since it is now not being used as she had originally intended. There are two main reports of ghostly activity coming from Starkweather. The first happened about 4.5 years ago with a janitor. Supposedly, the janitor was doing some work in the basement and he felt someone touching him. The janitor was freaked out from the experience and afterward wouldn't even stay put for questioning. The second report happened only a couple of years ago with a graduate student. She had went down to the basement to use the bathroom, and upon entering and turning the light on, it immediately turned itself off. She tried turning it back on, but every time she did it, it would turn itself off right away.
So is Mary Starkweather really hunting Starkweather Hall? Some evidence points to the contrary. According to the Eastern Michigan Archive, Mary Starkweather didn't even intend to donate a religious building in the first place. Initially, she planned to donate $10,000 toward a new science building. That being said, it was the Student Christian Association that confronted Mary Starkweather and asked for the money. So it seems very unlikely that Mary Starkweather will hunt this hall because it's no longer being used for a religious building, since it wasn't even her idea to use it as a religious building in the first place.
But Starkweather Hall is not the only supposed haunted building on Eastern's campus. Another popular spot for hauntings to take place is King Hall, located a mere stone's throw away from Starkweather Hall. King Hall was erected in 1939 as the first residence hall for women. It was named after Julia Ann King, who was the first head of the Department of History and Social Science between 1886 and 1913. According to the Eastern Archive, King was very involved with educating women in the proper ways to behave and live moral lives, her talks often being referred to as sermons. In 1971, King Hall was renovated and repurposed for the music department and special education department. Reports of paranormal activity have been happening at King Hall ever since the renovation. Now, the most recent have been happening at the Eastern Echo offices, where many strange things are said to have happened. Now, this includes light fixtures that have had black, mysterious, goopy substances coming from them and computers turning on and off. Now, the strangest occurrence is when the doors were opening and closing all by themselves.
Oddly enough, Another haunted building is located in that main area of campus, forming the most western point of a triangle, with Starkweather in the east and King in the north. Peace Auditorium has a very dark and chilling history. Built in 1914, Peace Auditorium ranks among the oldest buildings on Eastern Michigan campus. It was the main music building on campus, with all music classes taking place within. It was at this time that it garnered its most infamous moment in history, a classic tale of love and jealousy. The story goes like this. There were two music students in a relationship. She was a very talented soprano, and he was an equally talented trumpeter. They were very much in love. Anyone who knew them believed that marriage was in their future. The young man knew he had a prize, and as guys go, he was pretty insecure about holding on to her. After all, she was the complete package. Beautiful, smart, witty, talented, and faithful. One day, after leaving an academic class on the other side of campus, he was entering the auditorium to meet his girl for their standing lunch date. He noticed that she was being rather friendly with a male singer. She introduced the two gentlemen. He tried his best to take it in stride, but jealousy has its own way of creeping in. As the days and weeks went by, it seemed she was friendlier and friendlier with this new gentleman each time they were in class together. The young trumpet player was starting to get jealous. This guy was in the way, and he needed to go, one way or another. Steps to take some drastic measure to assure his removal were in motion. Jealousy was winning. One day, the young trumpeter was again going to meet his girl at Peace Auditorium. Due to a rather dark suspicion, he felt the need to enter the auditorium quietly. It was then that he'd heard his girlfriend singing. This made him curious. Her class was over. Her professor never stayed late, so there was no reason to be singing at this time. He slowly crept up the steps to the balcony and looked down towards the stage. What he saw enraged him. There was his girlfriend giving a private performance to this new gentleman. Previously, she had only done this for him. This was their special thing, and now she was sharing it with another man. Incensed with anger, he quietly crept down to the front row of the balcony. He sat down in one of his chairs and pulled out the revolver that he had acquired for such a situation. Overcome with hatred and jealousy, he pulled the trigger twice, hitting both the performer and her lone audience member. Aghast at what he had just done, without any other thought, he turned the gun on himself and pulled the trigger one last time. Now and again, people still report signs of the young man lurking in the auditorium. Steps can be heard coming down from the balcony, and the seat that he took to end 3 lives will suddenly flip down, all on its own.
But haunted buildings is not the only paranormal thing Eastern Michigan has going on. There's also something much deeper and darker. Something that could answer why Eastern is such a popular place for the spooks. A cemetery, long forgotten in time.
Students walk and drive up and down Ann Street from northern living quarters every day, but do they know what's located below their feet? Bones and remains of an elderly man were recently found near the physical power plant that were consistent with burials of the late 1800s. A little bit more research dug up a terrifying truth. What is now Ann Street was once a Catholic cemetery relocated in the early 1900s.
Could the ghost of King and Starkweather Hall be connected? Is it possible that all of the ghostly activity haunting Eastern Michigan University stems from one source? The Ann Street Cemetery provides our best look at what could be going on behind the curtains.